Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another episode of Monuments Monday. And again, in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Hancock Avenue and the area around the entrance to Hancock Avenue along the Tawnytown Road on Cemetery Hill. That particular area has changed dramatically over and over again since the time of the battle. I wanted to mention that I came across these articles in the newspaper and this interesting program or souvenir paper we'll show here for the Gettysburg Asylum. And this was in 1867. And it is one of the biggest scams of its time. And basically, this group formed and pretended that they were collecting money that would go to wounded soldiers to build a home in Gettysburg where all the wounded soldiers could live. You would donate money to such a thing, wouldn't you? Of course, it was a scam. They never bought property. They kept all the money. And according to one article, they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on this scam. In this area, we also had, of course, on Cemetery Hill, the Rosensteel Museum. And the Rosensteel Museum is built in 1921, and it was called the Gettysburg National Museum. And, I got a lot of questions about this fact when I mentioned it in one of our tourist industry videos. And that's the fact that George D. Rosensteel had purchased the Granite Schoolhouse property on Granite School Road. He actually, I guess, just bought the material from the building. And the stones were used to create a foundation for his museum and souvenir and refreshment stand. And there are a couple sources for that, including a 1972 interview with Emily Rosensteel about her husband's building of the museum and laying out of the museum. And also in our local newspaper, his purchase of the Granite Schoolhouse is mentioned. I also mentioned in that other video that the Rosensteel complex had 14 different additions or renovations done to it over the years. Of course, it was purchased by the Gettysburg National Military Park in 1971, and that building was torn down in 2009. We also have the Cyclorama building at this site, and the Cyclorama was first conceived as part of the Mission 66 agenda put forth by the National Park Service in the late 1950s. The idea was that by 1966, the National Park Service new infrastructure and new visitor centers at some of their more prominent sites. And both Gettysburg and Antietam visitor centers were built during this Mission 66 era. According to one booklet I read on this project, this was the golden age of master park planning. One of the things about the Mission 66, looking back, was they built the visitor center sites right on top of the site that they were trying to interpret. And obviously, there was a lot of destruction done to Ziegler's Grove and Cemetery Ridge when they put this huge visitor center on the building. As early as 1957, they had talked to a very famous architect, Richard Neutra, and he was commissioned to build this modern architectural feature that associated, of course, a huge building for the cyclorama painting. It opened in November, I think November 19th, 1962. And of course, these the Park Service Cyclorama Visitor Center and the Rosensteel Museum thrived for many years. The Cyclorama had a major parking area that was constructed right in the area of Ziegler's Grove. But eventually, the park needed a new, improved visitor center, and in 2008, the Gettysburg Foundation, along with the Friends of the National Park and the Gettysburg National Military Park, built a new museum and moved over to it. And this, of course, gave us the opportunity to restore some of Ziegler's Grove to its former glory. In 2009, the visitor center was torn down. And we'll put a link in our description to a page that has photographs about the visitor center being torn down, the old Rosensteel building. And there was a little bit of a battle over whether the Cyclorama building should be torn down or not, because, when it was dedicated in 1962, some of the speeches alluded to the fact that it was a monument. And there was several architectural associations that wanted to preserve that building as an example of Richard Neuscher's work. But eventually, it was torn down also in 2013. And then in 2015, they started to restore the area based on a conceptual design of how they wanted to make it look more like it did at the time of the battle. Of course, now, today, the site represents a parking lot, and as we will talk about in a second, a commemorative feature from 1922, 1923, and an attempted revitalization of the area around it to its Civil War appearance. So one of the interesting things about Hancock Avenue, as laid out in 1881, is that the official park entrance was off of the Taneytown Road. And the road came through this area and went into Ziegler's Grove and then went around and south along Hancock Avenue. And early on, a gate was placed at the Taneytown Road entrance. And we have several photographs of the gate that was there during the various years. At first, it was just a simple wooden gate. And then eventually, there was a formal metal gate placed with metal posts. And in 1921, the War Department came up with a design for a more elaborate entrance. And in 1922 and 1923, somewhere during that winter, they built this entrance. Now, at that time, early on, there is no entrance or exit from Hancock Avenue over to the Emmitsburg Road or over to the area of McDonald's. It wasn't until 1959 that they actually put in that little entrance into this area from the Emmitsburg Road. So all traffic had to come down here into this area and around to get onto Hancock Avenue. I should mention that when they built the Cyclorama building, and of course this large parking lot here in the early 1960s, they removed the Taneytown Road entrance. And they actually removed the 1922-1923 entrance stones with the eagles on them. And they were in park storage. And after they tore down the old National Park Service Visitor Center in 2009, and they tore down the Cyclorama building in 2013 and reduced the size of the parking area, they decided at the same time to reintroduce the entrance to Hancock Avenue. And these stones apparently had been in the park in storage. And the eagles had long since disappeared, but they replaced the eagles. And so now we do have back the entrance to Hancock Avenue near the spot where it was at the very beginning. It has been controversial over the years, though, because, of course, the park tore down the 1921 Rosensteel building that became the visitor center, and they tore down the Cyclorama building because they were not here during the battle, but we reintroduced a commemorative entrance to the park that dates from 1922. And we'll put some links in the description about the removal of the visitor center buildings and the restoring of the commemorative entrance for you to look at. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we have further episodes coming up for the monuments along Hancock Avenue. And remember, if you enjoy the content we put on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe.